Deal.
Okay, you said a fair fight. What do you mean by that?
As provided by the law.
Thunderdome.
Welcome to the Mad Max Minute, where the dice are rolling in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, 1 minute at a time. I'm Rick.
And I'm Julia.
And today we're talking about minute 24, which begins with Max concluding that Blaster can be disabled by the bosun's whistle, and it ends with Aunty showing off her fighting arena. He wants his camels, his vehicle, food, water, and methane. It's George Hendricks from the Mogwai Minute.
You better give me all of my methane.
We'll give you everything and more as long as you do this one thing for us. Namely, just finish out your recording with us this week, and then we'll be good. We won't even require you to kill someone.
Well, thank you. I appreciate not having to murder anyone to be on this podcast.
Oh, we appreciate you spending the week with us.
The barrier for entry is lower than others, but it's nice. It's relaxing.
We're inclusive.
Yeah, there are other podcasts. I'm thinking of the Fifth Element, where appearing on their show meant that you were promptly murdered and stuffed underneath their couch, but I think everyone got better.
They were having a good time figuring out ways to dispose of my body, that's for sure. Although I was so drunk by the time we finished that recording that they could have literally just taken my kidneys and left me in a bathtub and I would not have noticed it.
See, the problem with taking kidneys is you got to fill the bathtub with ice, and that's just a hassle.
It's like, why are you buying so much ice? And they're like, having a party. It's a kidney party.
What's really sad is when the guy you're buying ice from knows you so well that you say, oh yeah, I'm throwing a party, and he looks at you and says, yeah, I know you don't have any friends. What's really going on?
Or he asks, why can't I come? And like, we'll get you next week. How's that?
You're like, I'm sorry, dude, you work so much. I can't just work around it. Oh, it can be painful sometimes. Almost as painful as being locked inside of a giant metal helmet and having some jagoff blow a whistle in your face, which is exactly what's happening to Blaster at the top of this minute. Now, I would dare say that this whistle that Max is blowing is actually more effective than the car alarm.
I'd say so, yeah.
Because with the car alarm, Blaster was thrashing around and he was running into things and knocking up against stuff. With the bosun's whistle, he actually curls up in like a fetal position on the ground. He just kind of kneels down and doubles over. And I'm not quite sure if it's just the fact that he was subjected to the alarm and then the whistle, or if it's just the whistle.
Right, if it's a duration thing.
Maybe it is a carryover effect, yeah.
I think you said on Wednesday that the decibel level of the whistle was slightly below the decibel level of the alarm, but the pitch was higher.
Yeah, I think that's why the pitch comes into play, because he does have really sensitive ears, or his stapes and anvil and stirrup or whatever are like not properly formed, and so maybe he just doesn't have eardrums.
Maybe. There's a big difference between a car alarm that's meant to be heard across a parking lot and can be easily blocked out by closing a window or shutting a door, and then there's the bosun's whistle, which is specifically designed to be heard over the blowing winds and gales of a ocean storm or even the roaring cannons of battle. Like, it's specifically tuned for naval utilization that way. So there's definitely something special about that whistle.
Yeah, it's like a dog whistle, though. It's like it's a high pitch noise that only dogs can hear, and it freaks them out and drives them nuts. So
I know better than to pull out the whistle that I have and blow it here on the podcast. I don't want to top out the recording. That would be a little ridiculous of me to do.
Like, I'm peeking a little on my end over here.
So, like I said back on Wednesday, Max subjects Blaster to roughly 10 seconds of whistle and completely reduces him to a cowering mess. And because we're seeing Max come to this realization that this whistle can disable Blaster, I feel like this is appropriate time to ask, is using this whistle considered cheating?
Oh, you want to talk about it now?
I want to touch on it now. We can definitely discuss it later on in the fight itself, because we'll be in a completely different place. But I do want to bring it up right now. So, George, we'll start with you. Do you think Max using this whistle in the upcoming fight is considered cheating?
Not to plug any of my future podcast projects, but this is like a no holds barred situation. I mean, this is just, everyone can do what they have to do to survive. I mean, it's not just the game itself. It's not the competition. It's the world they live in. So I feel that any sort of edge is an edge. So I don't feel like it's against the rules. He could have gone into the fight without knowing about it just as easily, and the ending would have been a lot different.
Now, Julia, I think you have pretty strong opinion about this whistle.
I do. At the very end of this minute, Aunty makes a comment. She's introducing Max to the idea of Thunderdome. She says, 2 men, hand to hand, no jury, no appeal. So she specifies hand to hand, which, first of all, is inaccurate. It's not hand to hand. There are weapons available. But the very concept is that they go in there on equal footing. And the only advantage that one may find above the other is what provided weapon they can get to and use against their opponent. They are provided the weapons that they are allowed to use. And they each have equal access to those weapons.
But equal footing isn't, there's already no parity because Max is Max and, Blaster is like this 7-foot armored behemoth, muscular, beast guy who doesn't really know anything but savagery and beatdown. They're not really on the same playing field.
Yeah, the thing that makes me think that the whistle is not cheating is the fact that Blaster is huge and has much more reach than Max, but also Blaster is wearing a helmet. He is wearing literal armor. Like Max is wearing his jacket and his pants and his boots and whatnot. He's not protected at all around the face. And if Max goes in to punch Blaster in the face, he's going to connect with the helmet. And that's all that's going to happen. If Blaster goes in to punch Max in the face, suddenly he's not going to have a face anymore.
Right. Okay. Well, I do think that Max should have been given armor. I think either Max should have been given armor or Blaster's armor should have been taken away from him. But making up for their difference in physical abilities, I don't think that that's a very strong argument. Max knew that Blaster was the size and strength that he is going in, and those are natural abilities. Not anything that anyone gave to him. It's not supplemental. Those are his natural abilities. And yes, Max's cunning and cleverness are his natural abilities, and that is what he uses, but he also uses an outside tool to accomplish those things. He should have used his own natural abilities of cunning and cleverness to outwit Blaster at the same time that Blaster was out punching Max.
Yeah.
So they should have gone in there with only their natural abilities and the weapons provided to them. I will give you that Blaster's armor was a form of cheating. I don't think he should have gone in there with armor. And I think the whistle was a form of cheating. But one cheating does not cancel out another cheating.
Actually, if they both are by just dint of who they are, Max is clever, he is strong, that is putting them on the same level. And another thing is the whistle is not exactly like a sure thing. Obviously, it does incapacitate him, but without it, as we see later, if he doesn't have it, he is absolutely a creek. And so it's not it's like he blows it once and his brain explodes and he is, okay, I win, haha, walk away. I feel that would be more of a, if it was a bit more detrimental to his physical being, it would be more of a cheat. But this is more like an inconvenience. And because he is maybe a little bit more unable to process emotionally pain that happens to him, then he is probably at a disadvantage when it comes to this. But I just don't think it's cheating. It's just an unexpected boon as far as finding something to use against him.
Max is definitely using a loophole.
Yeah, almost like the fun little chant of 2 men enter, 1 man leaves just presents a whole bunch of loopholes and gaps in rule making.
Yeah, Aunty and the Collector like to behave like this place is governed by the rule of law. I don't know about that.
Law is only a law if it's being upheld by people that care about it. I mean, that's just how it is. And this law is there to give a baseline, but they interpret the laws as they see fit based on the situation. And
there's all sorts of different ways to interpret the law, and their laws are so simple. Break a deal, face the wheel, and 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. There's a reason that our laws here in America are so complicated, because they are trying to close loopholes and make sure that we know what we're supposed to do in every single situation so that things like Thunderdome don't happen.
Maybe we need a Thunderdome.
Maybe we do. I mean, Bartertown does seem to be relatively peaceful.
Yeah.
It's going back to when we had Molly Balin on the show and we were talking about how someone needed to pick up a book about governing somewhere along the way.
Right, just a social studies textbook.
When people fled the cities,
yeah,
they forgot to take the books.
Yes.
Yeah, Civics 101. It's we need to bicameral, judicial, and okay, wow, that's more than we have.
I think maybe their laws are just too simple.
Yeah, that's fair.
So it gives us the opportunity for us to see the outcomes in different ways and consequently value the outcome in different ways. Like, I don't really value the outcome of Thunderdome because I think that Max cheated, but other people
See the violence inherent in the system.
Yes.
yeah. But other people see it as completely fair because Max used the tools at his disposal. It's just too subjective.
But in the meantime, Max has seen all that he needs to see, and he stops blowing the whistle, and Blaster is able to collect himself. And it's here that we see Blaster turn to find Master, who's just fallen on his back, and he picks up Master, and the two just kind of walk away. And as they walk past the vehicle, it's revealed that Max has slipped out. He is not hanging around to rub elbows with the denizens of Underworld. He's seen all he needs to see and found out what he needs to find out, and so now he's just hiding off in the shadows.
Yes, I think there's a very real danger that he could end up with one of those thingy-majiggers around his neck, just for the very fact that he stood up to Master Blaster, even though eventually he caved and in a very dramatic way was shown how things work.
Yeah.
He could still end up doing time.
Although he's not able to slip out completely unnoticed.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Max is slipping away to save his own life. And there's Pig Killer with his loud voice and his asking questions, just making it incredibly obvious where Max is.
Hey kids, don't be that guy. Don't be Pig Killer.
For a guy who's chained to the ceiling, he is surprisingly quiet and deft at sneaking up on Max. Because Max turns and then boom, there's Pig Killer right there in his face.
Yeah. Pig Killer does always seem to be almost not in the thick of it, but right next to the thick of it.
Yeah.
He always seems to be just on the edge observing what's going on, which is, as somebody who's nosy, that's where I would be.
Yeah.
I don't need to be in the thick of it. I don't need to be part of the drama, but I want to know what's going on.
Now, did you two catch that initial question that Pig Killer had for Max?
You want me to kill a pig for you?
He said, "Hey, mister, what are you laying for?" And I don't think I've ever heard that phrase outside of this movie. What are you laying for?
Did you Google it?
I didn't Google it. I just kind of read the context. And I think when you ask someone, what are you laying for? It's more or less the same as asking, what are you down here working for? You think of the term layman. A layman is someone who's an unprofessional worker.
Okay. I was thinking of like laying eggs. As like doing
You being
work.
a chicken, mister. You being a chicken. You laying. What are you laying for?
I mean, they're both forms of work, so I guess it applies.
That's not the direction I was going with it, but I see where you're coming from.
Or, I mean, it could have just been a misspoke. He's just like, oh, that sounds weird, but sure, whatever, it's fine. Whatever.
Yeah. Hey, Australian listeners, what are you laying for? Is that a common phrase? Am I speaking out of term? Am I just being my dumb American self? Let me know. Like, let us know on either the listener page or on Twitter or something like that. I'm interested. So let me know.
Next time on Dumb American Minute.
Absolutely.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I always chuckle to myself that, we're a bunch of Americans talking about something made by and filmed in Australia, but we love it, so we have that going for us at least.
Yeah.
Max is not interested in engaging the Pig Killer in this line of questioning. He tells him very plainly that he's down there for no particular reason. Pig Killer asks, "Who are you?" And Max immediately says, "Nobody." And it's a shame that Pig Killer wasn't listening in, because Max already identified himself to Master Blaster. And not just saying, "Me, Max," he also said very plainly that he is a fairy princess, which I think is a completely underutilized piece of lore that explains a lot about the Mad Max series, but I think I've gone into that beforehand. Suffice it to say, there's a reason that he gets younger in Fury Road. It's because he's a fairy princess.
That's true. That's, yeah.
And the only way you can kill a fairy is by saying that you don't believe in fairies.
Beyond Titania Dome.
Exactly. So Pig Killer, still very excited about Max's presence. He rejects the idea that Max is nobody, saying that he can feel that something is coming. He says the dice are rolling, and Max gets out of there real quick.
Pig Killer, he's a very interesting character.
He concerns me.
I totally get and I totally understand this feeling that he has that things are changing. The dice are rolling. Who says they're going to change for the better?
Sometimes change is just what you need.
By the end of this movie, though, most people in Bartertown, their lives are going to change for the worse. There's only a handful of people whose life changes for the better. Now, Pig Killer is one of them, but that was just lucky happenstance.
We'll argue this when we get to the end of the movie, but I feel like when Aunty says we will rebuild, I think she fully believes that. And yes, Bartertown experiences a major setback, and things appear to be blowing up around town, and people are running around crazy, screaming and all that stuff. But I believe that they can rebuild, that they will find alternatives.
Yeah, eventually they might be in a better place, but by the end of this movie, they are not in a better place. They are in a worse position than they were in the beginning.
You're not wrong.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
We go immediately from Underworld up to Auntie's penthouse where Max has arrived, and he's come up the elevator and he's walking through the drapes. But before we get to Max and Auntie and all that, the Collector is standing next to something, and I'm pretty sure it's a cage. Did you see what was in the cage?
No. It looked like it was set up for some kind of reptile, like branches. Mm-hmm. And stuff placed in there. So I'm guessing it's a snake of some kind or something like that. But the Collector is watching it intently.
I want to say that it was some kind of lizard, because I think I saw like a leg or maybe a tail.
Okay.
George, did you see anything?
It's an iguana. I mean, not in the cage. I'm actually scrolling through it, and I don't actually see like an animal in there. But
it's very dark.
Maybe it's a chameleon. That's why you can't see it.
But it's interesting because most Wastelanders, when they have pets, it's a dog or a horse or something. The Gyro Captain had a snake. Well, he had several snakes. I just don't quite see the benefit to having a lizard, although when we eventually talk about the Vertigo comics, I mean, there's a lizard that plays a pretty big feature part in those comics, but that's a completely different thing. But it's interesting to me that Auntie has a pet.
Well, I think having animal companionship is very human. It's something that endures even through the apocalypse.
Do you think she's named it?
Yes.
What do you think she named it?
Lizard breath.
Yes.
That's funny because I was going to go with Ike.
I think George's answer better. Lizard Beth.
My answer is simply the best.
It's better than all the rest.
Yep.
Yeah.
So anyway, getting back to the actual content of the minute.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we're good.
Iron Bar pushes his way through the drapes, and Max follows very quickly after, and he wastes zero time. He is not into pleasantries or anything like that. He just barges in. He says, I want my camels, my vehicle, food, water, and methane. And Auntie spits in her hand. Max spits in his hand, and they clasp those hands together, and she says, deal. And this is a spit-based economy.
Yeah, to the point. I like it.
I like it too. I like how snappy and quick it is. I do have a little problem with it. Max doesn't clarify what is meant by a fair fight, which is a huge part of this deal, until after he's made the deal.
Yeah.
He should have asked that question before he made the deal.
It's a fair point, but at the same time, he's under pressure. He was just very upfront about the whole, he's getting what he's going to ask for. He's like, all right, maybe he's sort of like, all right, this is what I want. And she's like, got it. He's like, okay, now what am I doing again?
Yeah, exactly.
There's another instance that kind of points out that he wasn't really listening as closely as he could have when they listed out the different stipulations of this deal.
Yeah, maybe he should have asked about the fair fight before he even went down to Underworld.
Yeah, that would be real big kick in the pants if he gets back up to Auntie's penthouse and she says, yeah, it's a fair fight. We're going to strip you down to your skivvies and throw you in there with nothing.
Yeah.
He'd be like, oh no, where am I going to hide that whistle?
In his skivvies.
I mean, he's Mad Max. He'll figure it out. The only problem is if he's a little gassy, they'll find it.
They'd call him Mad Max the Teapot at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It would still disable
Absolutely.
Blaster.
Just for really quickly, though, he would have to... Yeah, I just don't envision that the scenario where that could be a viable option is pleasant for anyone.
Yeah, I doubt Max is getting enough fiber in his diet to make that an effective disabling method.
Like, all right, I'll fight in the Thunderdome in my skivvies, but I need to eat a can of beans first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to call it the Thunderdome in more than ways than one.
Oh, and So Max is having this conversation with Aunty, saying, okay, you said a fair fight. What do you mean by that? And the Collector just creeps up behind Max and pipes in with, as provided by the law. And it's like, dude, Collector, stop creeping up behind people like that. It's weird.
He is pretty creepy.
He's so weird. But as weird as the Collector is, Aunty is, she has an opportunity to show off more of Bartertown, and she loves nothing more than to show off Bartertown, because she motions with her hand and she says, Thunderdome. And Aunty is rather proud of this technological terror she's constructed, that's for sure.
She really wants us to know who runs Bartertown.
Mm-hmm.
Contrary to evidence past, I mean, she's like, I run Bartertown. I run Bartertown.
It's here that she mentions the whole 2 men, hand to hand, no jury, no appeal. And I thought about that whole thing. She says no jury. And I thought, well, how would you incorporate a jury into a 2-man death fight? And then I thought, not so much a jury, but maybe like a judges panel.
Yeah.
So the fight is going on, and then every round of fighting, they stop and the judges deliver their ranking of how each fighter is doing. Like they hold up the cards like the Olympics.
And then between rounds, a girl walks around in a metal bikini and waves up a sign.
Yeah. And if you're doing really well in the fight, you get a buff. And if you are not doing well in the fight, they like penalize you in some way. And
if the specters like you, they can lower down a sword or a chainsaw to you for you to use.
Yeah.
We could go full on Hunger Games with this.
Yeah.
Or a pot of ointment for your burns.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously there would be no appeal if it is a fight to the death, as the Collector said earlier in this movie. I don't think you can really put in an appeal for having died in combat.
Well, thinking ahead to the fight that we do see, there is a bit of an appeal phase.
Yeah, or at least there's one that Max tries to initiate.
Yes, and then Master comes in and appeals on behalf of Blaster. And there's also a little bit can be interpreted as a jury phase, where the people begin to chant 2 men enter, 1 man leaves, passing down a verdict that Max must kill Blaster.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up, because it's just another example of Max being told in no uncertain terms, okay, this is a rule, and then him getting to a point in this movie where he's like, I know I heard that was a rule, but I don't want to follow that rule. I think I actually want an appeal after all.
Yeah. So she lists 4 rules. There are 2 men. They fight hand to hand. There's no jury. There's no appeal. The fight that ensues breaks all 4 rules.
Because eventually there are 3 men.
Yes.
There are weapons involved.
Yes.
The jury is the crowd chanting to kill, and 2 men enter, 1 man leave. And then, of course, both combatants have a sort of appeal to not have to finish the fight.
Yeah.
Man.
They can just like not fight and they get killed, and they're choosing to not finish.
This whole thing, you think, with all the fun slogans, that it's rock solid, and then Mel Gibson shows up and just a monkey wrench gets thrown in the works.
Yeah.
Ain't that just the way of things?
It's those baby blues.
Sometimes PR just, it's not what you need. You need logistics. You need real things.
You know what would have really helped Aunty to make sure that Max kills Master Blaster?
The musical number.
Yes.
If Aunty had found a way for Master Blaster to mess with Mel Gibson's family, because that's the number one way to sign a character's death warrant in a Mel Gibson movie. If they mess with his family in any way, he hunts them down and he destroys them utterly.
He's not a fan of the family messing. I don't blame him, but I mean, he does definitely take it to the limit.
It reminds me, back when we were talking about Max first going into the penthouse, how cool it would have been if they had had a weird Jesse has amnesia and survived getting run over type storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Because then Aunty could have done the villain thing and caused Master Blaster to mess with the amnesiatic Jesse / Jesse lookalike, and that would have spurred Max to kill.
Yes. Yes, it would have.
Man, why wasn't I a screenwriter like 4 years ago?
Before you were even born.
I know. I need to build a time
just
machine.
like your hand sticking out as you're gestating, just scribbling away.
You're like, George Miller, I'm from the future. You need to let me help you write this story. Do you still have Joanne Samuel's phone number? No, I'm sure there are some people that hated me bringing up that idea the first time around, and they're hating me bringing it up this second time around, too.
You get so many angry letters from legal because they have to deal with all those people. I want to know if Tina Turner's affected British accent that she just out of the blue developed in life and then, translated in all of her other things. You run Bartertown, that sort of thing. If that directly influenced Madonna's doing that later down the road.
I'm going to say yes.
Because I feel like if anyone who would have, affected Madonna's choice to do something, it probably would be Tina Turner.
I mean, it makes sense. I find it funny that you kind of heard a British-style affectation because I kind of heard more of a, Southern style of speak when she mentioned the whole you run Bartertown.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because of all of the accent dialects in America, the closest to traditional British would be the Southern Southeast.
There's a bit of an overlap there.
Yeah.
And Tina Turner's from Tennessee. I'm going to look it up real quick.
I do. That extends past my knowledge of Tina Turner.
Tennessee? Oh, I was right.
Tennessee. Tennessee.
So she was born with that type of Southern accent.
Yeah, I think it just sort of slowly morphed into the Southern British thing going on. Although Madonna has no excuse because she's from New Jersey, New York, something like that. She's Long Island. Madonna is just, we're calling you out, Madonna.
Yeah. If she's listening, she'll know.
Come on the show and we'll talk about it.
Right.
But only if you do it in an Australian accent.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, it's probably morphed to that, I'm sure.
Madonna, if you're listening, just send us an email. I would say have your people call our people, but we don't have people. It's just us. So have your people send us an email. That'll work out.
As the Mad Max Minute legal representation, I will say send me your emails and I will refer to them.
Speaking of accents, we get a good couple of lines from Max in this minute. We get to hear his accent pretty well, and it is barely Australian. Barely Australian. I think he's starting to lose it. It makes me wonder if he was putting it on for previous movies. Because he doesn't speak in an Australian accent now, far from it.
Yeah.
Well, I think those first couple of movies, that was the accent that he was still using from his time growing up in Australia.
Yes.
And by the time 1985's rolling around, he's doing a lot more American features, and so he's spending a lot more time in America. And I can't be the only one that when I have someone speaking with an accent around me that I tend to slip into that accent, for better or worse.
Yeah.
No, I do that all the time, and I try to fight it because I feel like it can be offensive sometimes. So.
Yeah, Rick.
I can sympathize. I find it really tricky to go into convenience stores sometimes. Yeah, I'm trying to work on it.
Yeah. And also, this movie, there's no consistent accent throughout the characters. They're all just talking like they talk. Mm-hmm. You got Tina Turner's American, Southern.
There's no Australian accent coming from Tina Turner.
No. And the Collector is just British. And Pig Killer doesn't really have an accent, does he?
He's Australian.
Australian? Okay.
Yeah, Pig Killer and Iron Bar, those guys, they're dyed-in-the-wool Australian.
Okay.
So, out of anybody in this movie, at least them.
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, Savannah has a pretty thick accent.
Yeah.
Although we'll get to that, because
we haven't met her yet, so...
Yeah.
That's a whole other thing.
So I think in this movie, really, people just got to talk how they talk. Mm-hmm. And for Mel, that was pretty mild.
Yeah. We're going to put a pin in everything. At this point, we've reached the end of the minute. Aunty is mid-sentence, so we're going to pick up with what she has to say on Monday. George, it has been great having you on.
Thanks for having me. It's been fantastic.
You've been a great guest. Would you like to tell the people where they should go to find more of you?
Find me and my co-host Neil arguing about all sorts of things on the Mogwai Minute. It's on any of your podcatchers, Apple Podcasts or Google Play. So, and we have a good time. You should come check us out. We do this, but with gremlins.
Yeah, if you're a fan of Christmas movies that are not Christmas movies.
Which I am quite a bit, yes.
You can go check them out there. As for us, if you want more of our voices, we of course have our weekend show through Patreon. You go on there at the $3 level. You can listen to our sideshow Anarchy Road, where we are thundering our way through Hook 5 minutes at a time. We are on week 8 this week, where we follow the second star to the right and head straight on till morning. Peter is able to pick up some pointers on how to blend in with his surroundings. And It's a Smee, played by Bob Hoskins, who parades a hook through town.
It's another Christmas movie that's not a Christmas movie.
Yep. It's in good company.
It is. Right there with Die Hard.
Oh, Die Hard's so good.
So if you join us on our Patreon, we'll see you tomorrow. If you are just joining us for the main show, we'll see you on Monday. The Mad Max Minute podcast is a fan project by Rick and Julia Ingham.
The Mad Max franchise was created by George Miller and Byron Kennedy, is presented by Kennedy Miller Mitchell Productions, and distributed by Warner Brothers.
Mad Max Minute is produced and edited by Rick Ingham. Our opening music is Verdi's Dies Irae by Daniel Batista of danielbatista.com, and our outro music is We Don't Need Another Hero by MilitiaVox of militiavox.com.
Our home on the internet is madmaxminute.com. You can follow us on Twitter at madmaxminute, like us on Facebook by searching for Mad Max Minute, and join our Facebook listener group, Mad Max Minute Beyond Microphone.
If you'd like to support the podcast, visit madmaxminute.com, where you can check out our TeePublic storefront by clicking the store link, join our Patreon by clicking the support link, or make a one-time donation by clicking the donate link.
Thank you for joining us for Minute 24 Beyond Thunderdome. See you next time.
Everybody say